first, let's talk a little bit about leadership and what it's like in your particular unique situation. You came in having worked over a decade at the hospital, a lot of management roles, and you are replacing Jack Barto, who retired, who is a bit of a wallflower. Not, kind of quiet and demure.
Absolutely.
So you were coming into a situation where you're replacing a longtime leader, well-known in the community. You yourself were well-known in the business community too, but not in this particular role. So I'm kind of curious where your head was at. What were you thinking in terms of strategy of how you were going to come in and introduce internally at the hospital, but also to the business community, what kind of leader you were planning to be?
Certainly. The transition from Jack to myself was an interesting one. When you think about succession planning in an organization in transition, it's usually a very susceptible time, usually a tumultuous time in an organization. And our board had the foresight to, about 5 years ago, put a succession plan in place. And then actually execute on that succession plan. Make sure we were developing leaders at all levels of the organization. And they had a decision to make. Do we go external or do we stay internal with the succession plan? And as they went through that process, they looked at, I think, the most important thing, which was putting the organization first. The transition was not about Jack or not about John. It was about putting the organization first, making sure that the reasons we have been so successful remained in place. The culture that we have developed over the past decade, we wanted to sustain that. And so executing that transition plan, I think was fantastic. Not just because they picked me, but when you think about how much disruption that can cause in an organization. And so, I had one of the greatest compliments that I had just a few weeks ago. I walked in to the hospital, and one of our ortho-trauma surgeons was walking down the hall. He said, "You're just the person I was looking for." And, your mind goes to, uh-oh, what's going on? What issue do we have? He says, I just wanted to thank you. Stopped me in my tracks, of course. I said, "For what?" He said, "It's been like 2 months. I forgot we had a transition. Things have gone so smoothly." And so again, I think that's a testament to the plan the board put in place. Now, I will say, when you think about a transition, and you look at what the textbook approach is for a transition, it's putting a succession plan in place, it's training, it's putting that into action, and having a smooth process. And so you rarely see that. You rarely see that happen in any business. And we actually pulled that off. I liken it to a duck swimming on a pond. On the surface, it all looks really smooth and graceful. And that compliment from that surgeon, is one indication of the transition going smooth and graceful. If you've ever seen a duck swimming on a pond, underneath the water, they're paddling like hell. And that's what Jack and I were doing, in a very positive way, but transitions are difficult. And when you're trying to step up into a new role, Jack is winding down a phenomenal career. Who leads in that dance? Who follows? When do you take the lead? When do you step up? And so, amazingly, as I reflect back on the transition, I absolutely believe it was the best thing for our organization. It's kind of what you'd see from a textbook standpoint. But I've often thought, it's probably easier for the individuals involved if somebody's coming in from the outside.
Right.
And that's not best for the organization necessarily. But it's interesting when you're trying to, somebody who's mentored you for a decade, done a phenomenal job, you don't want to, the way I put it to Jack is, how do I step up without stepping on you? Mm-hmm. And so, but in the end, it was great because we had the opportunity to spend those last few months going around doing employee forums. And so you asked about introducing to the organization. Jack and I were able to do employee forums around our organization, touching thousands of employees, and literally being able to do that handoff in those forums and talking about what he's accomplished and what is and isn't going to change in the organization, and then handing it off to me to introduce myself.